What's up, YouTube? Zachary Michaels here. I'm an actor, and this is An Actor Reacts. Today we'll be talking about Season 2 of PEN15. Let's discuss. Before we get started, if you're new to my channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and leave a comment below. PEN15 is a Hulu original comedy series created by Maya Erskine, Anna Konkle, and Sam Zvibleman that premiered on February 8th, 2019. The series stars Erskine and Konkle as 13-year-old versions of themselves in the year 2000, with the rest of the cast being actual 13-year-olds. Season 2 of PEN15 premiered on September 18th, 2020. Okay, so I was a big fan of PEN15 Season 1. I actually worked on it for a day, and while I was there, I was like, I don't think I'm gonna like this show, but when it came out, I thought I'd give it a chance, and I ended up loving it. Like, me and my friends were always referencing jokes from the first season, always just like repeating lines, so we had high anticipation for Season 2, and let me just tell you, Season 2 did not disappoint. So let's get into the good, the bad, and I'll tell you my rating for this season. Okay, the good. Now, I've got a lot of good. First off, I think for this season specifically, they did a great job of like picking right up where season 1 left off. Like, season 1 ends off at the dance, and then season 2 starts 2 days after the dance. So it like jumped right back into the story with the characters that I already loved, and it just hit the ground running basically. And I'd say a good for like the series overall is that it does such a good job of recreating like middle school. Like, middle school was such an awkward time in my life, and I think it's an awkward time for most people, but they did such a great job of like putting me back in that mindset, and I'm like, oh gosh, this was middle school. Oh, I remember that. Or like sometimes it's like, yeah, I remember that. That was kind of fun. But it definitely, they do a great job of like recreating that atmosphere, and I think so much of that goes to Maya and Anna, who, like, chef's kiss. They do so great in this show. Like, one, from the writing aspect, like, they're great in the writers' room, as are all the writers and the creators. But like, their performances as these like 13-year-olds is so freaking believable. Like, it's the easiest like suspension of disbelief that I've ever had to do, because they just fall into these characters so easily. Like, it feels so weird that I like end up rooting for them to like be in relationships with these actual, teenagers in like the most non-creeper way. But it's just like they do such a good job of playing these characters that I just kind of forget that they're grown women and they're not actually, teens. And just seeing them with the other teens, it's like it works so well. I do love though that they make it apparent throughout the show that they're not actually kissing these kids. They're not actually like, touching or feeling on these kids. Like, they make it so obvious anytime there's like a kiss scene, or like at the end of season 1 there was like the Brand was feeling on their boobs, and it was like very obvious that these were like stand-ins. Anytime anything inappropriate is happening, they make it very apparent that like, hey, we don't have these kids and these adults actually doing this stuff. So I just love that kind of touch to it. But honestly, they do such a good job of being these like 13-year-olds that I probably wouldn't even second guess it at first. Though once I like step back a little bit, I'm like, wow, these are grown women, and I'm rooting for them with kids. That feels so weird, but they're just so good at it. What else? Oh, the kids in the cast are also really, really good. Sam, who's played by Taj Cross, he does such a good job as like this, especially in the second season, as like this kid who is kind of struggling between two worlds. He's friends with Maya, has a little crush for her. Love that storyline. I'll get into that in a second, but I love how he's kind of struggling between like his, dorky friends, and now he has this chance to kind of be cool because he's on the wrestling team, and Brant, the cool guy, likes him and thinks he's funny. So he's kind of straddling this world of, do I hang out with my friends who've always been there for me, who are maybe a little dorky, or do I go with the cool crowd and hang out with them and maybe be a little less myself just to fit in? And that's definitely middle school, you know? Like there's that struggle of one, who am I? And two, like how do I be myself and do what I like while still, trying to be cool and while still, being friends with the people who have always had my back. And that's just a real struggle. And I love that they dove into that this season. I actually wish that they would have dove into it a little more. But it was just great to touch on, and I like something else that I related with in the show. I also just love like Sam and Maya, their storyline. Like I said, I feel so strange, like rooting for this like grown woman with this teenager, but the characters, I'm just like, come on. It's like they do this will they won't they thing, and I'm just like, come on, they will. Let's do it. But the pacing has been really nice in their storyline. Like from season one, like finding out that he was Fly Guy Miami, whatever the screen name was, like that he was that, and then him confessing it to Maya, and then this season, them backing away from each other, and then in the end, kind of coming towards each other. So I love the different the way that they've laid out their relationship. But now, I've had enough of will they won't they, and I need them to like make it happen in the show. Let's see what else. Oh, just also another quick like the nostalgia thing that they do. Like I mentioned, the chat room that Sam and Maya were in. Like I wasn't a teenager or in middle school in the like early 2000s when AIM and all the chat rooms and stuff and dial up was big, but I have older siblings, so I saw kind of that stuff through them. I remember like my sister being in chat rooms and me being like there watching her. So I remember that stuff kind of because I had older siblings. So that's like a nice nostalgic touch as well. And like the music that they do, like she was singing Slob on My Knob, I think that's what it's called, by like Juicy J and them. And so that was just like, oh gosh, this song that was definitely out in 2000. So there's just like a lot of lovely nostalgic moments. But back into the kids cast. Let's see what else. Um, yeah, I just need more Sam and Maya. Like that ending with them was such a tease when he's like running after the car. I was like, no, stop it. Or like when uh, Maya and Gabe break up and Gabe leaves the car. I was like, okay, now Sam is gonna get in the car and they're gonna finally say that they like each other. But that didn't happen. They did have a nice moment in that finale episode, though, like in the restaurant where he's congratulating her. When Sam's congratulating Maya, and he's like, I thought you did really good. What was up with the kiss? And she's like, I don't know. And he's like, if it was me, I wouldn't have covered my mouth. And I was like, ah, these two. I need it just to happen again in the show. But yeah, so that's Sam. Love that character. Love the journey that he went on this season with like his friends and the journey with Maya. But I needed to speed up a little now. And then Gabe is also really good, played by Dylan Gage. I thought they did a really nice job of his storyline, like him kind of trying to figure out his sexuality, especially in like the early 2000s when like homophobia was rampant. I thought that was done really well. And like his like a relationship with Maya and him really not being comfortable and Maya kind of being oblivious. Thought that whole thing was done really well. He's a really good actor, and hopefully we get to see more of him and maybe him and what's the character Ian, played by Ivan Malone, who's like Gabe's crush, but he can't really act on it, and it was done really well, especially like that scene at the water fountain when like Gabe starts saying some like homophobic things to his friends to kind of cover up how he was just flirting with Ian. And that's real, especially real early 2000s and real middle school. Again, they just do such a great job of capturing that kind of those kind of feelings that middle school has. But loved Gabe and his storyline this season, and he got a little step up from because I don't remember him much from that first season. And then also Jafir, Tony Espinoza. I mentioned him. He doesn't really have that much of his own storyline, but he's part of that Gabe, Sam friend group. So those three are, I think, really good actors, as are most of the kids in the cast. But there's way too many to name them all. But he's really good, and hopefully he gets some more storyline, too. But then there's also Brant, who had a much bigger part this season. He was just kind of eye candy in that first season, but his like again air quotes relationship with Maya this season took more of a front seat, and I enjoyed seeing that. I think he's really good at the like the deadpan. He's very like that uninterested cool guy who for some reason Maya loves and does not pick up on how uninterested he is. I thought their storyline was really good. I was kind of rooting for them a little bit to get together just because I love Maya and I want her to be happy. But it was also kind of like a thing where I thought that, if they started dating, then Sam would get jealous and then they would finally confess their love for one another. And I thought maybe Brant did actually like her and they would, maybe start dating, and then she would realize that she doesn't actually like him the more she got to know him. And I thought he was just like keeping how much he liked her a secret. But I think maybe not. Maybe he actually does just not like her, but she is kind of weird. Like the putting the hair in his locker, that was a bit much. She's definitely got some issues and some growing up to do. Like even Anna was telling her like that's not a cool thing to do. But good character. I like the focus on him this season. Their Maya and Brant's relationship kind of reminds me of like Nate and Jules on Euphoria, except like a more PG version. But like they feel like, because I feel like both Nate and Brant like them, but are embarrassed of that and are struggling with that. It's just funny. They bring a lot of hilarity in that situation, though, like with Maya and Brant. Like, again, how deadpan he is. Like, in that first episode, when he's like, "Can you move from the in front of the TV, cutie?" And he just says it so dry, no enthusiasm. And she just, like, swoons because she just thinks he's, so great. But he's just obviously not interested in her, at least not in the way that she wants him to be. But really good storyline there. Um, I am. It just kind of disappeared though after he told her off. It was like going and then it just halted, and then we really didn't even see Brant for the rest of the season. But whatever. There were actually a couple times throughout the season where stuff just like dropped off randomly. But I'll get into that in my bad. But anyway, what else? Brant. Oh, and then also Shuji, played by Dallas Liu. I think he's really good. He's a little older. I think he's actually an adult now, but he was like 16, 17 during the first season, but now he's like 18 years old. But I think he does a really good job of like that bully, mean older brother, but actually sometimes has a sweet spot for his younger sister. He actually wasn't in this season that much, and that's kind of another thing that I didn't quite love about this season. That like some characters kind of took the back seat while others got pushed to the forefront. But I think it's a really interesting character, especially in that first season. We didn't see much of him in the second season. I feel like he was only in like 2 of the 7 episodes, but we did learn that he's not actually Maya's full sibling. They're only half siblings. So I think that's something interesting, and maybe that'll pop up in the future and something we'll get to explore. Because that actually kind of brings me into my last really good thing about this season and show is the mix of like comedy and drama. They do a really good job of that. So like I could see them bringing in like him feeling resentment because this isn't his like that's maybe not his dad, and he feels kind of separated from the rest of the family maybe. Because like when I look at a storyline like Anna's with her parents divorce, they did such a good job of like bringing that to the forefront this season. The season was actually a little darker than that first season, especially when it dealt with that divorce and how that impacted Anna, as well as how it impacted the parents. Her parents are played by, what are their names? Melora Walter and Taylor Nichols. They did a great job of that kind of really tough family dynamic, and it's for sure a relatable dynamic for a lot of people. But how they dealt with that was so good this season. And I loved in that finale episode seeing Anna, like, because the whole season she was kind of pushing her mom off and neglecting her and really taking the dad's side. But then that finale, she finally got to see it from her mom's perspective. And I love that final scene between those two. It was just so raw and real and A plus acting from both of them. Like they actually made me shed a few tears because of like I get that frustration from Anna's viewpoint of like parents fighting and like moms can be annoying as can dads and you just feeling that frustration for them, but then sometimes you like take a step back and realize, hey, like maybe I'm not being the best kid in this situation. Like my parents are just people, they're going through struggles too, and maybe I could take it lighter on them. And when she like goes in there and apologizes to her mom and they're both crying, it was just such a heartwarming scene because again I relate to that. Really really well done. Let's see what else. Parents divorce. There's two at the end. Oh, I also love Maya's heart to heart with her mom, um, played by Mutsuko Erskine, who is Maya's actual mom in real life. I love that they have her in the show. But that moment where they were, oh, first the moment where she spanked her at the mall. Now I never got spanked at the mall, but I did get spanked when I was like younger. So that was all too real. And but then seeing like that heart to heart that they had in the tub together was just such another like heartwarming moment. Like about the salad bowl, like only keep in there what brings you happiness. And she's like, Anna brings me happiness. I thought that that whole scene was just so beautiful and so well done. So they have these really like honest, heartfelt moments balanced with like the cringe kind of comedy that they have. And let me just say, I love the comedy in this show because again, it's just real and relatable, and it takes me back to those moments where I'm just like, ugh, middle school, ugh, being 13, ugh, life. But yeah, I feel like that's all. Oh no, there's a couple more things. The play episode, I thought that that one was really good. As an ex theater kid, I related to like that tech hell week so much. I related to like that the fighting between the tech crew and the actors so much. And I love seeing Anna finally find something that she's really good at, that she can really take charge of, and finding your own thing even if it's not like what you thought it was going to be, but really finding that in yourself, because that's again a lot of middle school is finding what works for you and finding really who you are. And I love seeing her finally do that, as well as Maya finding like, hey, I'm an actress and I'm maybe good at it, which they none of them were good in that show, but that's pretty realistic for a middle school production. Like nobody's gonna be good. Also, the dude, the drama teacher, played by Michael and Gunrano. I don't know. I'm pretty sure I butchered his last name, but the dude who plays the drama teacher is the guy from Sky High, and I did not even realize that until I like was writing up notes and stuff for this review. He really good, but that's the dude from Sky High. Did not recognize him at all, and he's actually Maya's boyfriend in real life. So I love that she threw him in there. Um, and then there's also Anna's new love interest, Steve, played by Chow Long. Um, and I think I'm pretty sure he's an actual adult. So I think that they're gonna, go somewhere with that storyline, and maybe they'll have actual kissing and stuff in there because they're both consenting adults and not minors. So I liked where that was going with her, and just really her coming into her own and finding a love interest who's technically a little older in this show. Really good. I also love um, how they like put lessons into the show. Like there was in season one, there was that racism episode, which was really good, or and relatable and real. And there was like that sleepover episode, which was also again relatable and real, talking about kind of how, even though like she loved Anna and loved the idea of her coming over, as soon as she did, it felt like she was invading in her territory, and she got real territorial. and her mom had to be like, Anna's family is in shambles basically. You have us, but we have to take really good care of her. So I loved that sleepover episode in that first season was probably my favorite because one's so hilarious, like the scatting at the table. That's one of the scenes that me and my friends quote at the time. But then like just again how real and honest it was with like you getting territorial with your friends and then just like having to be there for people who have less, even if you feel like, hey, my stuff is getting taken, like there's always somebody with less than you. um and then in this season there was like the subtle nods at the sexism, like when they're like, I think it was the first episode when Anna and Maya get called, sluts because they had a threesome with Brant at the dance, and Anna had two threesomes that night, or one of them had two threesomes that night. And they're like, Anna's like, well, if we're sluts, Brant's a slut too. And Maya says, no, he's not a slut. He's just a player, which is just so real. And not just in middle school. That's like real in life. Like women and men do the same thing. Men get like rewarded for it. Women get like looked down on because of it. So I just love like the little nuggets and stuff that they place throughout this series. And there were like stuff like that and a couple more in this season. But again, I just thought this season was really well done. I loved it. I enjoyed it so much. I actually DM'd both Anna and Maya on Instagram after I finished the season, like that first night that it came out. And Anna replied and was like, wow, thank you so much for finishing the season. And it was like a couple days after my birthday. So she was like, happy birthday. And so that was just really cool. Loved this season. I still think the first season's a little bit better, and I'll get into that why am I bad. But this season definitely, again, did not disappoint, and I'm excited for more episodes to come because I really love this show. So that's all I got for my good. Let's get into the bad. Okay, the bad. Now, I really don't have that much, but there are a few things that kind of stuck out to me. First thing I want to talk about, which this isn't really a bad, and I actually meant to mention it in the good, but it doesn't really fall under either one. It's just something that I observed and wanted to mention is that all the kids have grown a lot. And like I said, this season picked up right where season one left off. So this is 2 days after the season one finale. But they've all grown so much, because they're 13, 14, 15, 16, going through puberty and growing. And it's been like a year between seasons. So they're all growing up. So I just found that really funny because it's supposed to be 2 days later, but they all look significantly different, especially like Sam. Like in that first season, he was a pinch shorter than Maya. Now he's like towering over her. His voice is a lot deeper. And if this all happened in 2 days, it's like, come on. It's like, to be expected. Kids are gonna grow. I just thought that was really funny how like they're growing up, but like Anna and Maya obviously still look the same because they're already developed grown women. But anyway, now let's get into my actual bad things. One, this was only 7 episodes. Now I can't even fault them too much because initially I thought it was just 7 episodes, but again, while I was doing research, I found out more stuff about this season, and they actually ordered 14 episodes for this second season. But stupid COVID, like they were filming and they only got halfway through the season. Filming wise, before everything shut down. They're thankfully back filming now, but the second half of the season isn't going to be out until 2021 sometime probably. But this first 7 episodes, I was like, no, that was too short. This was a tease. But now I'm kind of thankful that they at least released these because I couldn't have waited another year for like all 14 episodes. So thankfully they put these out. And there's still at least 7 more episodes to come because that cliffhanger from this like mid-season finale with Sam running after the car, it's just like, no, I needed that to develop a lot more. But anyway, 7 episodes wasn't enough. But again, I can't fault them because it's not their fault. It's stupid COVID. Let's see what else. Oh, sometimes I feel like the show gets a little vulgar for no reason. Like I don't mind a show being vulgar at all. And this is kind of like cringe comedy, so it's to be expected. But sometimes I do get a little bit uncomfortable with how far it goes. Like there was that random scene of like Maya sucking on Anna's breast. It didn't came out of nowhere. It was just so weird, and I was like, I don't I don't know why this is in there. Could have been taken out easily. It was just a little too much for me. Or like the talking vaginas at the end of an episode, like that was just it was just so strange to me, and I was like stuff like that a couple times. I'm like, why did this need to be in there? Did it need to be? Like, I was fine with them, like, looking at their vaginas in the mirrors. Like, that's a real thing, I guess. I don't know. I don't, you know, I don't know. Because I never had to do that, but I imagine that's a real thing. But I was fine with that scene happening. But then the, like, talking vaginas just, I don't know, it took it a step too far for me. And I was like, yeah, I'm a little uncomfortable. Or like in that first season when that episode where Maya starts learning about exploring her body, we'll say. Again, I was fine with that episode. Like that's a real thing in middle school, especially. Like do you? But there was at one moment where they had her pull her hand up, and there was stuff on her hand, and I was like, okay, I don't need to see that. That's just a step too far for me. So just stuff like that throughout the show makes me step back, and I'm like, okay, it went a little too far with like the crude cringe comedy. But those are few and far between. For the most part, I think the show does great on its comedy and balancing that level of cringe and like uh, you know drama and normal comedy. Let's see what else. Oh, sometimes also I feel like they're a bit too naive for middle school. Like there are certain things where I'm like they take it a little too far, and we're like, I don't know if by the time I was in seventh grade, like I thought that. Like everybody calling Brant feeling on their breast a threesome, I was like, I'm pretty sure by middle school I knew what was and was not a threesome. So that felt a little strange to me, or just like little details like that. Sometimes it felt like they go a little too far into the naivete of a 13-year-old, and it's like 13-year-olds know a little more than you're letting on. Or like that witch episode, which definitely was probably my least favorite one. Really felt like a filler episode. I wasn't interested in like the magic aspect because it was obvious that the magic wasn't going to go anywhere, and all these wishes and stuff that they were doing wasn't going to actually amount to anything, and they were just kind of being naive. And it's like but by the time I was 13 years old in 7th grade, I wasn't like, I never would have believed any of that. So like stuff like that, it just kind of takes me out sometimes, because I'm just like, would a 13-year-old actually think that? Again, in that episode, I did like how they dealt with Anna's like divorce from her parents, like her just trying to make herself disappear and go away because she didn't want to be there in the world anymore. Like that's real. Like she was going through depression basically, and that's how she was dealing with it. But I thought that aspect was really good, and how Maya like consoled her and made her feel better. Like that all was done well. But the rest of the episode with like the magic and the spells and the taking out hair for like all that, I could have done without. Um, at the beginning of the episode, I was worried that they were just gonna stay in the woods playing that, you know, the witches game for the whole episode, and I was like, oh no. Thankfully, they did get out of there, and the episode did get a little better as it went on. But overall, that's probably my least favorite episode this season, just because it seems so out there, like too far away from reality for me. And part of what I love about this show is how like grounded and real it is while still being comedic and theatrical. Let's see what else. Oh, Maya and Sam. Like I said, I love them. I love their relationship. I love the pacing so far. But I didn't get that finale moment that I wanted, and because they didn't get to do that finale moment because stupid COVID. But like I needed something more satisfying, like him running after the car. I needed it to stop and him to run up to it and be like, Maya, I love you. I'm just tired of it being like, will they, won't they? And I need them to get it together and make it happen. So hopefully in the second half of the season, Maya finally gets her boyfriend, Sam, and finally gets that first kiss of hers. Because I'm really rooting for that. But I just needed more of them this season. Let's see what else. There was also like a weird focus on certain characters while dropping off others. Like I mentioned, Shuji barely being in the season, he was kind of dropped off. Sam, who did have a storyline, didn't have as much as I would have wanted. And like I liked his storyline about like kind of struggling with the cool crowd and his, dorky friends. But that started off well and then just kind of dropped off. That storyline disappeared. I really wanted more of that. Even if I couldn't get more like Sam and Maya, I would have liked to explore more of him trying to deal with that and him getting back into what's his name, Jafar or Jafir. Him getting back. What's the boy's name? Yeah, him getting back into Jafir and Gabe's like good graces. Like I understand Gabe because I think Gabe has a crush on him, but Jafir was like, this you've changed. I can't be friends with you anymore. And then like 2 episodes later, without any explanation, they were just friends again. So I would have liked to see some more of that develop. Also like Anna's storyline with the wrestling, I thought that that was really interesting, like how into it she was, and like maybe she could have been good, and it like got aggression out of her, but that also dropped off after they found out about the like big smelly bush thing. So there was just a couple storylines in there that I would have wanted to focus on more, and like I would have loved more focus on Shuji and Sam and Jafir and Gabe and a couple other characters who like dropped off from that first season. Would have loved more focus on them. Instead, we got like Brant being front and center, which again I didn't mind, but it was like, if I had to choose between Sam and Brant, I would have chosen Brant or Sam more and Shuji. But again, I did like the Brant storyline and it did go well, but that one kind of dropped off as well, like I mentioned in the good. It just kind of, he yelled at her and then we didn't see him again. So it just, a lot of stuff felt like it dropped off randomly, or like random plot points would pop up and not really be of any importance. Like, really the culmination of all this is like Moira, I think her name was, or I don't care. I didn't like the character. I thought the actress was really good. She's played by Ashley Grubbs, but the character I didn't feel like needed to be in this season. She didn't add much, if anything. I just thought she just came out of nowhere. Like when she popped up, I was like, "Who is this girl? Have we seen her before? Where did she come from?" And then she just kind of served as like a kind of a way to try to separate Anna and Maya, but she was never actually successful at that. Like they were together and friends the entire time. She was just kind of mean to them a lot. And then she did kind of manage to get Anna away for like 2 scenes, 5 minutes maybe, when they found out about the Maya's period, which I didn't get. I was like, why is Anna taking this so personally? She's the one with her period. Why do you care if she told you or not? Like that's her business. You guys are best friends, sure, but anyway, that took them away from each other. But again, that was for 2 scenes, because then like 2 scenes later, she found out that Moira was unstable, and then she ran right back to Maya, and they were best friends again. So I didn't know why Moira was there, why they spent so much time on that character, because the character was annoying, didn't like her at all, and she was just really mean. So it just felt kind of like that time was spent on her. That could have been time we spent on Sam or Shuji or Maya and Sam. It just felt like wasted for me, because she's another one who, once we found out she was unstable, the character just disappeared and then was on to the play. So a lot of stuff just like was popping up throughout the season that didn't amount to anything, or characters were overlooked. So stuff like that did bring this season down a bit for me. I did still really enjoy it though. Anything else? Um, no, that's all I got. Oh, Mara did give me a really funny moment though when Anna was calling Maya to like, and had Moira on the phone too, and she's like, how much do you love Moira? And Maya's like, I'm being honest, and she's taking forever, and then she's like four, and then Anna jumps in to save her, so she doesn't like confess that she hates Moira. I thought that scene was done really well. It had me like rolling. I rewound it a couple times just because it was so like I was like, oh, okay, confirming Maya doesn't like her either, because I definitely did not like her by that point. It was kind of obvious what she was doing, and I just wanted her to go, and then she did, and we didn't hear from her again. But yeah, that's all the bad I got. There are just a few things that kind of stood out to me in the season as bad, which made that first season a little better. But overall, I do think, again, this was a really good season. Did not disappoint. Just a little too short, and I didn't focus on all the things that I wanted to, and then focused on some things that I could have done without. But I'm excited for those second 7 episodes, and hopefully they get approved for a season 3 too, because I really love this show. But that's all I got for my bad. So let's get into my final thoughts, and I'll tell you my rating for season 2, or at least this first half of season 2. Okay, so my final thoughts. I'm gonna try to keep this brief because this video is already longer than I thought it was gonna be, but I just got excited and started rambling on. And I've kind of already said all my feelings anyway, but I think that this season was really good. Great follow up to that first season. You're rarely ever gonna outdo the original, though a couple shows that I've watched this year have outdone the first seasons. But this one, they had kind of a disadvantage because they got cut off midway through a filming, so they only had those first 7 episodes. But I think they did a really good job with it. Still really funny, still really relatable. Maya and Anna do an amazing job, as does the rest of the cast, the kids, the parents. Everybody in the show is really good, and I really enjoy how like relatable it is and how much nostalgia it brings me, both from the early 2000s and from like middle school as a whole, because I'm pretty sure middle school is probably still the same and just as miserable. But really good. Just wish that it would have focused in more on the people I really care about, and I could have done without that new addition to the cast and some of the things they focused on. I wish they would have focused more on certain storylines and less on others. But anyway, overall, I think still a really solid season. So I'd give season 2, or at least this first half of season 2, a 9 out of 10, which is a really great score. I think I gave that first season, I didn't make a video, but in my head, I gave that first season a 9.5 out of 10. And this is just like a point 0.5 less. So again, still really great. And I'm really excited for that second half of the season. And again, hopefully they get a season 3. That's all I got on PEN15. Leave a comment below. Let me know your thoughts on season 2 of PEN15 and season 1. Do you like this show? Do you not like it? Is it too cringe for you? Let me know all that below in the comments, or maybe you haven't seen it and you want to go check it out. I would definitely recommend this show if you're not too like sensitive, because like I said, they do get very vulgar sometimes. But I think it's a great watch. I always recommend it. Again, me and my friends are always talking about it. Really good show. So yeah, leave all your thoughts below in the comments. Let me know if I left out something that you liked or didn't like. Okay, I'm in back into my rambling, but leave a comment below. Let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends and family, and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Thanks for stopping by. See y'all next time.